going on, everybody, and welcome to the one, the only NYY News TV. We are here with the man that they call Dayne Huber, but I mean, they kind of call you the prospect guru now, which is what I'm trying to get everybody to understand you as. So, Dayne, man, how you feeling? What's going on?
I'm feeling great.
Feeling great.
I'm so stoked that we got Rizzo back. That Judge won the MVP. We just need to lock that up. Get him signed.
I think, you know what? I want to make a prediction right now, Dayne. You might disagree with me, but I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
I think Judge is signed way quicker than we believe.
I think he's signed next week for...
Oh, look at that. Next week?
Yeah, I kind of have it done before next week, and I think the number's 8 years, $328 million. So
okay.
Because that puts the contract just a little bit above Cole's.
Yep.
Because
correct.
Cole got $9,326, gives him the biggest contract, the highest AAV, and I think Cal's going to put that captaincy on him.
Oh yeah, I think that's to me that's a lock. That's a guarantee that that's going to happen. But everybody so far on the Real Fan package. So guys, if you're not a Real Fan member, become one too, because we also got our member giveaway happening very soon. I'm going to make that announcement to tell you guys what date that will be. But you want to be a Real Fan member because Dayne has put together his top 31 prospects. We're going to do the next release a little later tonight, the next 5 in line. That'll be released later tonight. That is in the Communities tab on the homepage of NYY News TV on YouTube. You'll find it right there for Real Fan package members only. But today, Dayne, me and you are going to discuss 5 players that were just off of your list. And a lot of these guys are people the fan base is already familiar with. One is a big name that looked like a stud a couple of years ago, and now forget about it.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
So, Dayne, we already know what we already started that list. These are the guys that were just left off. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we?
Let's do this, buddy.
Let's do it. Anthony Garcia, the big old first baseman. Tell us about
gosh. If there's a kid you want to see in batting practice and around the complexes, this kid is it. He's a switch hitter. He's going to hit balls 500. He might even hit one 600 feet from either side of the plate.
So the power is all there from both sides of the plate.
The exit velos are 120 plus. Woo! So you're not going to find a guy that hits the ball much harder. He has got a really good eye at the plate, which makes no sense when you look at the rest of his numbers because he strikes out over 35% of the time. But he walks a lot. You'll see a batting average of 200 and an on-base percentage over 4.
So he's the classic three
true outcome guy. The defense isn't good at first base. It's not good when he was in right field. He just doesn't have great hands or an instinct for getting to balls that aren't actually really easy to get to.
Right, you got to put a lot of effort into, or not even just effort.
Correct.
He's not working hard. He just doesn't have the instinct to get over.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't have the instinct, the footwork, the stuff to be a premier defender like an Anthony Rizzo at first base. But being 6'5", 250 and switch hitting and being able to run, I still think there's a hope that this kid maybe helps the Yankees eventually down the road.
Right.
He'll be Rule 5 eligible this year, but he's not usually the kind of kid that gets taken because he still is so raw.
Yeah. 22?
22
years old?
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, these guys, and you made a good comparison to him. You said, and maybe down the line he becomes this type of guy, like a Deivi Garcia, who really didn't find a home with the Yankees. And then I think he went to another league, and he came back here, and now Oakland got him, and he's kind of changed his career up a little bit. He
did. Dermis was probably the one guy in the Yankee system from 2 years ago that was equal power-wise to this guy.
Yeah.
When Dermis went to the Oakland A's, he cut down on his length of his swing and stuff like that to make it a more chopping wood action, so it was a more line drive launch angle, and cut down on the strikes. I think Garcia is way more talented. Anthony Garcia is way more talented than Dermis Garcia. Wow. Because Dermis just could hit the ball a long way. Yeah. Garcia has the eye at the plate, switch hitter, and he can run.
And let's be honest, too, in today's day and age of where analytics kind of drives the driver's seat a little bit, so to say, those three outcome guys have a home in Major League Baseball. A lot of those guys are finding spots now. Maybe it's kind of swinging a little back to more average and the basic fundamentals of baseball. I think that's going to happen a lot more. Just a prediction I have.
I hope so. I think that it's heading that way.
I definitely think it is. You see some of the old school managers kind of getting back into the game a little more and a little more. But for a guy like him, there's a home. I think it's like you said, right, is that he just kind of has to shore up that approach a little bit, and he could really take off.
He does. Oh, he could. He's got all the tools to be an incredible big league talent, but he just strikes out too much.
Well,
and if you're in the A level and you're striking out 35% of the time,
it's not good.
No, it's hard to see a path to the major leagues. Yeah. But if somebody can do it, this kid can.
He just seems like one of those guys that he can automatically go from, like you said, an outside looking in guy to an in guy after one season if he just puts it together.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the way I would describe it.
And by the way, too, you mentioned that these are names that you still want to look at heading into this
right.
year. You still want to pay attention to these guys.
I still, these are guys that I do not think have a high chance of affecting the roster this year or in the future. But if they put it together this season, they could end up in the top 10 of my list next year. Wow. Any of these guys.
Well, let's jump to the next name because a lot of people are immediately going to know who this is because he was all the hype for a while when it came to the international free agents. That is Alexander Vargas, a shortstop. He's one of those crops of shortstops that the Yankees were talking about. We got all these guys coming up, and he just hasn't really hit his stride.
No, he hasn't hit his stride. Every year since, I believe we signed him in 2019. Every year since then, he's been on some kind of list as far as best tools, best fielder. He's got everything you want, being another switch hitter, incredible defensive chops. Yeah. The kid is on par defensively with someone I think is an absolute great player defensively in Oswalt Peraza.
That's high praise. That's high praise.
It doesn't get much higher for me for that defensively. Yeah. Vargas runs incredibly well. It's true plus speed, probably 65, 70 grade speed.
And we're going to, by the way, too, for the fans listening, we're going to discuss more towards the end of this video. I want Dayne to take a second, kind of tell you guys what that grade scale is. So we'll do that at the end, Dayne, but just continue on. I wanted to let everybody know when they hear that, if they're not familiar with it, we'll let Dayne explain to you kind of what scouts look at on that grade scale.
Absolutely. Anyway, Vargas is a very interesting player. He's still young at 21 years old. Every single tool that you want a middle infielder to have, he has got. He's got incredible speed, great hands, great arm. He hits well in batting practice. It just hasn't come around in the games yet. And scouts are getting frustrated because every year he's mentioned as a just missed on top 100 lists and, just on the outside looking in. This kid's got to take the step this year if he's going to remain a legitimate prospect in our system.
No doubt.
Because as you'll hear coming through the rest of my list, we're not short on middle infielders.
No, definitely not. That's probably the biggest surplus that the New York Yankees have. It's like everybody they get, he's a short. Oh, okay, he's a shortstop. Throw him in the shortstop crop. We got those guys. Shortstop, center field, and catchers is their obsession. Yep, no doubt about it. Moving on to the next one is a name I think people are going to be actually very familiar with. That is catcher Josh Breaux.
Josh Breaux was a second-round pick. Was a two-way player in college. Ran his fastball up to 99. Wow. Yankees liked him more as a hitter, and they put him behind the plate. He reminds me very much of Gary Sanchez defensively,
Good.
where he's
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
huge arm,
Right.
huge arm. Doesn't block real well, doesn't frame real well, doesn't handle the pitching staff incredibly well. He's an offensive-minded backup catcher, in my opinion.
Good power.
Huge power numbers. The exit velocities aren't that much different than Anthony Garcia's in the 115 range. He'll pop home runs in bunches, and then you won't see him take a walk or get a base hit for what seems like 3.5 weeks after that.
Wow.
It's just, it's an inconsistent bat at the plate, but when he runs into one, it goes about 500 feet.
And
he'll do that.
And he's Rule 5 eligible. Do you see a team? I mean, look, backup catchers are pretty valuable for a lot of clubs. If a team feels maybe we can pick this kid up, he got some good power, maybe they gun for him.
Catchers are one of the biggest things taken in the Rule 5 draft because they're so difficult to develop all the way through. I don't know if Breaux has enough, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't think that he would stick on another team's 40-man roster all year. There's a possibility, but I don't believe. I think he's going to get drafted, and we'll see him back at the end of spring training.
Wow, okay. So moving on from Breaux, which, again, is a name that a lot of people are very familiar with, to really another name I think a lot of people are familiar with. And here's a guy who gets compared to a lot of the speedy outfielders out there. That is Brandon Lockridge.
He does. Brandon Lockridge is the Tim LeCastro type for me. He, of the non-prospects in our system, or guys just on the outside of our top prospects, this kid is the fastest in the system. It is a true 75-plus grade speed. We're talking
so that's elite speed.
Low. That's beyond elite speed. We're talking low 6'2", 6'3", 60-yard dash times. Puts him. I mean, he's a track star.
Yeah.
And that turns around in the outfield and allows him to cover a ridiculous amount of ground. Then the arm is nothing to write home about. It's accurate, but the velocities you're going to see coming out of it aren't going to be those that you're going to see coming out of a Spencer Jones or a Dominguez from the same position. I think Lockridge ends up as a 4th, 5th outfielder in the Tim LeCastro mold, where somebody will bring him along all year on their roster just in case to have him in the playoffs to be that late inning defense and pinch runner.
Okay, yeah. But guys like that have a place in Major League Baseball, no doubt about it. Like
they
Lockridge.
do. That's why I wanted to mention him for people. He'll have a place in Major League Baseball. Right. It's just where he's going to find the home. I don't think it's going to be the Yankees.
But
that we just have.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Too many.
We have a lot of those guys, but he just it's the good thing is about having something elite is that you could potentially get some time somewhere. So he'll have that. He'll have his moments, so to say, in Major League Baseball. I would assume with elite speed and defense.
Yeah, and when we go over what the scouts look for and the grading scale and all that, I'll explain how rare 70 or better grade is. And if you have one of those grades in a tool like speed, defense, you're going to get a shot sometime.
Agreed. And last but not least, this is a big one because a lot of people know exactly the name. They knew the hype, and boy, oh boy, did he just go down as quick as you could possibly go down when it comes to the prospect status of being an elite to just who the hell knows. That's Deivi Garcia.
Oh, God.
Dayne got a headache discussing this one already. So tell us what you know about Garcia and what really happened to him.
Number one, somebody should be fired over this deal. 100%. after starting a playoff game in 2020.
Of course, everybody
Garcia,
don't know that's the whole debacle game with J Happ and him, the little flip.
Right.
Which was
where he started as the opener. It was just a disaster.
Disaster.
But he had pitched well in the weeks leading up to that. He was a viable major league pitcher, and he was ranked in the top 30 in all of prospects. I think it was 37th at the end of 2020.
He was right up there with the best.
I always thought that he should have been traded because the size and the frame do not speak to someone who is a long-term starter.
I was told that. I reported that multiple times, that most scouts that I speak to said he's a relief pitcher. They don't see him as a starter long-term.
Well, indirectly, that's what they've got now, but they absolutely ruined this kid. So he goes, in 2020, he goes home to the DR and starts trying to get rid of the crossfire action that we saw, the inconsistent command with his off-speed pitches, the rough arm slot, and it totally goes sideways. Matt Blake, Eric Cressy, Sam Breen, who is our pitching coordinator for the minor leagues, they all tried putting him back together, and as we saw in the 2021 numbers, didn't work. And again, this is where I want to know who is responsible for this, because if you ruin a team's number one trade asset, get zero from him as a 21-year-old, who's responsible for that? I would fire somebody for screwing with my number one prospect.
Maybe
like
if
that.
Cashman felt the process was off, maybe he would get rid of it, because the result doesn't matter. But he might say, hey, the process was fine, so we keep him.
Hey, maybe that is what it is. But anyway, going into 2022, the lockout, they're not allowed to have contact with their guys on the 40-man roster, which Deivi was. He's frustrated with his season, goes back home to the DR again. They call him Little Pedro because he's built just like Pedro Martinez. He's had multiple meetings with Pedro Martinez in the past, and the rumor is he wants to be Little Pedro. And after struggling in 21, he gives Pedro Martinez a call or sees him down in the DR and says, hey, give me a hand. I need to rebuild my mechanics. You know, you're my idol. I want to be like you. I don't know how the conversation went, but you can get the idea. And he has Pedro start working with him instead of the Yankee-approved coaches to lower the arm angle, make it more of a low or a high three-quarter release instead of the over-the-top release that he pitched so well with pre-2021. Gone is the elite curveball that we saw. Gone is the fastball command. Gone is the improved slider that we saw in 2020. Gone is the changeup. The whole thing was just absolutely... He went from a top prospect to somebody who looked like he'd never thrown a ball.
That's crazy.
And Pedro was also trying to get him to throw for more velocity. And when you're that little with that kind of frame, you have to cheat in order to create more velocity, which is where the crossfire action comes in. And Blake and Cressy and Breen tried to get him to go back to his old mechanics, and he was fighting arm release spots, motions, the whole deal, and they never got it fixed.
He's just really right now kind of in no man's land, and we have no idea what we're going to expect.
Actually, I got good news on that a couple days ago. They have put him in the bullpen full time. He is going to be a reliever moving forward. They taught him a cutter, a sinker, and a slider.
Okay.
Those are going to be his three pitches going forward. the sinker was up to 97, 98, and I even heard a couple 99s.
Really?
At the very end of the year.
That's impressive.
In short outings, it was very impressive. The cutter is a legitimate plus pitch for him. He just absolutely took to that like a fish to water. It might be his best pitch now, and the slider is more of a whirly.
Well,
and
that's
I'll
what the Yankees
explain.
do. The Yankees teach the whirly quite a bit. Me and Kevin Kernan were discussing that.
Yes, the new slider is more of a whirly, and for the fans out there that don't know, think of Greg Weisert's slider, where it starts off 2 feet behind the batter and ends up all the way across the plate. Deivi's slider obviously isn't of that quality yet, but I think that next year, if they don't release him, don't trade him, don't do away with him, he has a chance to help the bullpen that last year or next year.
I mean, just knowing that a little bit, I tell you what, like I'm gonna be interested to see what he does out of the bullpen, whether he starts in AA or AAA. But I'm definitely excited to see what he's able to do at the bullpen, especially if he's back up to their, mid to high 90s. Throwing a sinker, a good cutter, a slider. I mean, those are the three pitches you want from a lot of relief pitchers, and it could be a good sign for him.
I think it is going to be a good sign for him. And as we discussed earlier, his frame is built for relief and shorter outings.
I remember back in the day, if you remember, him and Clark Schmidt were like the two big starting pitching prospects for the Yankees. And
they were.
Every scout I talked to, they were like, Pete, Clark Schmidt is going to be by far a better starter going forward. Like he's
absolutely.
No way. Like one is more built that he could be a starter. The other one is not built at all to be a starter. And now we're kind of seeing that. We'll see what happens with Clark Schmidt, of course, but as of right now, I like the idea of Garcia going to the pen. Maybe you get something out of him. Look, he's still young. He's not an older guy. 23 years old. So he has something left in him if he could, really kind of harness what he has in that frame for 1 or 2 innings.
Right. I think he could be please forgive the arm motion difference, but I think he could be a Scott Efros type. Not that he's going to come out and sling a sidearm or whatever, but someone who struggled coming up through the minors and then got to the majors and just took off.
Together. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So we mentioned before about the grade scale. Can you break that down for the fans a little bit so they understand it a little more?
Absolutely. I would love to. Scouts grade on 5 things: speed, glove, arm, hit, power. They grade everything on a 20 to 80 scale. And I have no idea who came up with the 20 to 80 scale. It makes no sense, but that's how they do it. You're going to hear a lot of, when we're discussing these things, you're going to hear things about above average grades, plus grades, plus grades, or more. Major League average is a 50. Okay. That's your average skill set to reach the major leagues is a 50. 55 is above average, 60 is plus, 60 and above is plus or better, 70 is plus, and once you get past a 70 grade, it is incredibly rare to see. It's not that 1 or 2 guys in your system might have it. It's 1 or 2 guys in all of minor league baseball might have an 80 grade tool. So it just doesn't happen very often.
Interesting. Definitely that actually gives us. So for the fans who don't know that, and you start hearing that with guys like Volpe, you start hearing the number scale. You can kind of piece it together now on where scouts kind of see these guys. So that's a very interesting thing to know and to keep our eye on.
Well, just for example, in my top 10, I only have 1 guy with 170 grade tool, and that's Peraza's glove.
I was actually gonna guess Peraza's glove. Yeah.
The arm might be there, but that's just how rare those double plus or better grades are, or the true 70 grades or better are. You just don't see them very often. And if you see a guy in a list that says 70 or better, that's something you got to watch out for, because that tool is as elite as it gets.
No doubt about it. So, again, guys, these were the top 5 guys that just missed out on the top 31. We're going to have more of that list coming out Friday night. I'm hoping to release this video at some point today, which is Friday. So if it comes out on Saturday, this is recorded on Friday. If it comes out on Friday, guess what? It's Friday. We're already good to go. So, again, Dane, any last messages for everybody out there? Anything you're planning for the future for us?
Absolutely. My top 31 list, as Pete has mentioned, is going to be available on the Real Fans package side. I have done extensive breakdowns of our top, what I feel are our top 31 guys. I might grade and list a little differently than some. There'll be some surprises on there. There'll be some stuff you guys didn't know about our prospects that you'll want to read so you can get excited about them next year. And then Pete and I are going to have breakdown videos of each one of those guys on my list. So you guys not only can go back and read about them, you'll be able to go back and watch us talk about them and familiarize more with the Yankee system. And that's what we're all here to do.
No doubt about it. And we promised you guys one thing. We promised you that in 2023, one of the major differences for NYY News TV is going to be the prospect side. And Dane is the man to do it. So I've already enjoyed reading his list. I know a lot of you guys on the Real Fan package have already responded to me with good feedback going, man, this is actually really valuable, because I didn't know about some of these guys. And there's a lot more guys on that list that you're going to want to read, because, again, it's not like Dane is putting a name out there, putting a sentence. He's putting almost a paragraph, sometimes more than that, on some of these guys. And then, of course, we're also going to be making regular videos regarding these guys. So the work never ends here at NYY News.
It does
TV,
not.
Not at all. So, Dane, with that being said, I'll probably talk to you very soon, but let's say bye to the fans, shall we? Adios, guys.
NYY News, see ya. Hope you watch more. Thanks so much.
Listen to the man, all right?